Hornby's latest incarnation of the Class 373 Eurostar features the latest livery, but is otherwise very similar to its predecessors. Is it worth considering for your layout? It's time to take a closer look. Hi, thanks for joining today's review. The first thing we're going to do is an unboxing of the 4-car train pack and also the 2-car coach pack. We'll then do a close-up view of both of these, followed by a running session of a 6-car train. Then we'll do a summary, scoring and final recommendation. Okay, let's get underway. Hi, so today we're looking at the Eurostar Class 373 from Hornby. This is the latest version of this. I've never owned one of these, so this is a new experience for me, going through this particular car. And I'm also going to take a look at the 2-car expansion unit. So we've got this guy as well, and we will do the running session for this with the combination of the two. So we'll have 6 cars actually in the running session when we do that. Okay, so out of the box we get the usual sheet. This is actually just a single sheet. It talks about connecting the center cars and adding DCC. So we're going to add DCC, and I will be doing this to this unit. I do want to put DCC in here. Okay, let's take a look at the unit itself. So it is slightly different packaging from, say, the Class 395, which was kind of a paper, recycled paper. This is all plastic, so it's a little bit different than what they had there. Hopefully it's recyclable plastic. The cars are quite nicely packaged. So you've got this outer sleeve here, and then you've got a separate protection on each of the bogies. I don't know if that's for all. It's actually for on all the cars actually. So let's just take that out, and I'll kind of give you my first impression right now. So my first impression is actually I'm quite taken aback a little bit actually, because the color is quite different from the previous Eurostar models from Hornby. So I know they have upgraded the color scheme in line with the more modern versions of this, and just didn't quite expect to see it. Even the box looks a little bit lighter. The greys looks a lot lighter actually. So the first thing that strikes me here is it is quite a bit darker than you might expect. So certainly than I would have expected. The model itself, I mean, this is not a premium price model, to say the least, but actually the pantographs there are metal, which is good, so that's actually a good sign. It's not a bad model. There isn't a lot of kind of added detail, if I put it that way. It's basically molded detail. The wipers at the front there are molded. It looks like it has lights. There looks to be kind of lenses in there, but it doesn't. And if we kind of look underneath here, you can kind of see through the body there. You can see through to the front window underneath. So that's kind of indicating that there really is nothing in there. So even when you add the DCC, you're not going to get any lighting on this. It's something I might look at doing if there's a possibility of adding lighting in the future. It draws power from both bogies. So we can see the pickups there. This is the driving bogie here, and you can see the dreaded traction tires on here. Now, I'm not a fan of these because they tend to leave certain deposits on your track. We'll weigh this. It's a modest weight, I would put it that way. It's not as light as say a railroad locomotive, but it is light relative to, say, a HST Class 43. So it would be interesting to see what this weighs in at. I suspect it's around maybe the upper 280, 300 gram type range. We'll measure that later on. We'll cover it in the summary. There isn't a lot of underbody detail, as you can imagine. Not a lot there. And we will do a close-up and a 360 on this. But I suppose the most striking thing is the color. It is much darker. It's passable. I'm fine with it. So you know, so be it. So that's pretty good. And I say these are metal, so this is better than what you get. They're a little bit loose perhaps, but this is better than what you get on the Class 35s, 395s, for example. And these are posable as well, so I'm going to pop up there and you can kind of set it. That's it. That's okay. And it looks a lot better than the 395 pantograph. So let's just put him to one side and we'll take a look at one of the center coaches. And it's quite light actually, it's very light. And so there's a relatively straightforward, this guy will couple to the other center coach. So take off the protection. I mean, this is quite nice having this level of protection and the outer sleeve for, you know, what is a £100 set effectively. You know, it's hard to beat that. The bogies look pretty basic, but there's nice metal wheels on there, which is no harm. Very plasticky looking kind of assembly, so that connects down onto our friend here. So very simple. It's there's nothing complex going on here. There's nice seating in there. There's nice tinted windows. I think it's acceptable. I mean, this is fine. I mean, this is. I'm not really expecting more for this kind of money. So this looks fine. And of course, his equivalent on the other side, which will connect into him. So we'll take a look at him again. So we'll take a closer look at both of these and a 360 view of them, and then we'll get them out on the track. So, you know, as I said, it's the colour is the most striking thing. You know, this is a £100 set, so it looks at least as good as a railroad and probably better, and hopefully it'll perform better than a railroad model. So let's just put this to one side from there. I'm just going to bring over the separate pack. So this is the expansion pack. It comes with its own sheet, which talks about, you know, where to fit the various coaches there, the coupling A and B. And it also comes, interestingly enough, with a spare set of traction tires, just in case you didn't have enough. So this thing, they say to you on the sheet there that it's in case the others are worn out and you want to add them. So as I said, when I do look at the inside of the main motor unit, I will look at, is there room in there for some added weight. I would prefer to add some weight and get rid of the traction tires, but that's something we'll look at down the line. These coaches are fine. They're just equivalent to what we saw for the main set, just different running numbers. You know, they hit the mark. It's the same level of packaging, the same quality, etc. The seats are slightly different colour actually. Yeah, they look a little bit darker. So maybe there's a different class or something on these. We'll look at that a little bit later on. So this is perfectly fine. I'm not really expecting anything more than this. So we're going to put the whole lot together, and we'll do a running session with the 6-car train. Do a little bit more on the close-ups, and then we'll get into our summary and scoring and see how she fares. Okay. Okay, now we're going to take a close-up view of the model. So we'll do a side on here. I think the livery is well presented here. It's well rendered. Looks really good. So this aspect of the model actually is very good. As I mentioned earlier, there isn't a lot of actual added detail to this. It's pretty well plain molded plastic in the main. But that livery does look nice. I think I prefer it actually to the earlier liveries. And you've also got the posable pantographs, and you've got 2 of them. They're of reasonable quality, and I was pretty pleased with them. This power car and the dummy car, they do look pretty good. You know, nothing really to comment on there. Here, looking at them from a kind of a 360 view, again giving a kind of a better view of them. Again, nicely rendered. It's pretty basic at the front, and obviously not having the lighting when you're running the train is a drawback. So there is something missing there, and you do kind of notice that when you're running this compared to a Pendolino or the Javelin high-speed trains, because they all do have lighting at the front. But as I say, the pantographs, again, you can see both of them there. I've only got one of them extended, but there's 2 of them. Both can be extended. And they do look pretty good. A very basic coupler at the back there, as you can see. And the bogies have got that blue colour. A little bit of weathering on the bogies actually might make them a bit more realistic. This is the centre car. This is from the actual the main train pack. And so the actual styling on these is designed to fit in with each of the power and the dummy cars. So when you add the add-on train pack, it actually sits in between these 2 cars. and just watch for that. The actual the livery is designed to do that. You can see the way the livery goes up there in the middle, and again, these are very presentable and very nice interiors and nice windows on them. So we'll get into the running session now. So we'll speed up pretty quickly. This is a fast train, so you don't really get a lot of low speed variation on it. You've got to get it up to a good speed pretty quickly, and there is a bit of an issue over pico points, so I'll talk about that in the summary, which is another reason you want to get the speed up if you've got those on your layout. So we're starting to speed it up pretty quickly here. It is smooth, and it does run well, and it does run on Radius 2 as well. This is running on Radius 3 at the moment. I did run this on Radius 2 as well, and it works very well. All credit to Hornby there, getting it right up to the kind of the next level of speed now. This is kind of the mid speed, and again there are some challenges with controlling this under DCC versus DC. I think it's better to run this under DC, but I have a DCC layout here. And here we're just going to get up to the top speed, just below it right now. We'll hit it when we come through the station the next time. And so we're up at our prototypical 300 kilometers per hour type speed. And I know it can be a little bit scary. Some people kind of think the train's going to go off the track, but this is stable. It's well designed. It does stay on the track. It is solid and smooth, as you can see. And I didn't run it at top speed on Radius 2. I really just didn't have the courage to do that. I ran it about maybe up to about 2/3 speed, and now we'll bring it into a stop now when we cut through this time. But you know, it runs very well. There is a full video of the running session. You can see that kind of goes through it in a bit more graduation and gives a bit more running time at the top speed. But it's not a bad runner overall. There's some issues with controlling it under DCC, responsiveness, and you don't really have all the linearity you'd have on a better class locomotive. But not a bad running session. Okay, so we're going to get into the summary. We've been looking at the Hornby Class 373, E300 as they call it, Eurostar. Comes two packs we've looked at here is the 3215, the 4-car train pack, and the 4580, which is the 2-car centre coach pack. And they both come in the new post-2014 Eurostar livery, and this is a slightly darker livery, but this is what you'll see on the tracks these days. The motor has got a 3-pole skew-on motor and is 8-pin DCC ready in the power car. There's no facility for DCC in the rear car. Runs on a minimum Radius 2 curves, as I said. Now, I didn't attempt to run it at top speed on Radius 2. I just didn't fancy it. But nothing just tells me that it mightn't actually be fine. And it certainly runs fine on Radius 3. There's very little in terms of extra features. Obviously, there's no lighting here, for example. It does come with dual posable pantographs, the metal pantographs, and they're both the power and dummy cars, and they're actually quite nice. The unboxed weight is 309 grams for the power car, which is light for a motor, and hence the need for traction tyres, which I don't like. And then the dummy car is heavy enough to 23 grams, a little bit heavier than I thought it might be. Coaches are light. The coach with the dual bogies is 150 grams, and then with the single bogie, 131 grams. So the combination of the two coaches together gives you 3 bogies and a combined weight of 281 grams. The maximum scale speed I got on this, and this is what the settings on my DCC controller was, 298. I tried to get it as close to 300 as possible. And at that speed, running the 6-car train, I was drawing 270 milliamps as a peak current. The retail selling price for the train pack, it's between 90 to 110 pounds, which is, you know, really very reasonable in price. You'll easily get it below 100 pounds. So, you know, very hard to complain about that. The coach pack is a little tighter price range, typically between 48 and 60 pounds, and it is really around that 48, 50 pound mark is where you'll typically pay, and that's as March 2021. So let's take a look at the scoring. So the running performance, I'm giving a 3-star, and there's a few reasons behind this. It does run better under DC than DCC, so I certainly found similar issues running this under DCC that I found with running the Railroad Class 43 HST and the Class 395 Javelin. You know, issues with the control under DCC is not good. It's not what you're used to. If you're used to, say, running either one of the super detailed Hornby locomotives or a Bachmann locomotive under DCC, you're not getting the same sort of responsiveness out of the controller. Your low speed control isn't really as good, and overall it's not the best driving experience. this thing really runs best when you're driving it fast, somewhere between 2/3 and maximum speed. That's where it runs best. It doesn't tend to run that well at the lower speeds. The other issue I did have, it does encounter the pico points problem. You can see it in the graphic there. It does short on those, and that's because of the width of the wheel. It only shorts on the power bogie. Part of that is down to the, I think the traction tires are actually, they're just creating that that little bit of extra overlap there that's causing a problem, and you can see the short there on the Pico express points. Now if you've got Hornby express points, you won't have the issue. You've got a much greater level of insulation on those, and they've also got a wider radius on the curve radius on them, so you don't tend to get this issue. It's a Pico point type issue. I suppose the point I'm making here is I don't have really any other locomotive in my layout right now that has this problem on my Pico points except this one. So if you do run it through at a reasonable speed, it won't stall. You won't even notice it's there, and you'll have seen that during the running session. But if you are running at a slower speed, it will stall and maybe start up and continue on. Worst case, if you're running it too slow, it'll stop altogether, create a permanent short, and you'll have to reset your DCC controller. Or if you're running under DC, you'll have the same issue. So just a point in terms of that. It does have the traction tires, and these do leave residue. And I have some residue on my track, even after the running session. There was noticeable residue across the curves on my track, curves in particular, because they take the hard time in terms of the stresses when the train is taking corners, etc. So that was definitely something that is unwanted. I certainly would rather not have that. So that's something to be looked at. Yeah, so the other things, in terms of appearance and detail, I'm giving it 3.5 star. I think overall it's not bad. I think the livery is actually well done. These are relatively simple cars now, so there isn't a lot of fitted detail. Things like the wipers are actually just part of the mould of the window. The pantographs are good. The metal posable pantographs are actually pretty good, and they look to be robust as well. A little bit loose, but they seem to be robust. I think 3.5 star is fine, and for me, for this particular train, I've no qualms about it, given this price point. Extras and variants are really low. You really don't get a lot of extras here. The only extras really are the posable pantographs. And then the build quality and packaging, I think overall the build quality is pretty good, and they are well packaged. So the individual packaging on the bogie, the wraparound packaging on each of the cars, all very good. So I don't really have a qualm about that. Price value, 5 star, really for the money. I picked mine up for £82 as a Amazon warehouse model. And there's not a problem with it. And typically you'll pick this up for somewhere between £95 and £100. So hard to argue with that for a powered 4-car train pack. You can compare this to, say, something like the Yellow Submarine Eurostar set, which is a 4-car, but it's a full train set. And that sells at about 150, just over £150. So you've got the trade-off there between getting a 6-car set here with the kind of more bland livery, I suppose, or getting something like the Yellow Submarine set as a full train, as a 4-car, for the same sort of money. And overall, I'm giving it actually a 4 star. And that's really driven, I think, by the sort of price point and what you get for your money. I think it is good value. I think if I was to get this under the Christmas tree as a young modeller, I would have been more than pleased with it. I wouldn't have any issues with it. I think for more serious modelers, some people may just totally disregard it, and I certainly did historically. But when I saw the price, and I was curious, so I did pick it up when I saw it at that low price. It isn't not a bad set, and an excellent value starter set, as I say, really. And it does have its shortcomings though, and if there are issues for you, I think the traction tires in particular are just awful, and I just don't like them. What they do to your track is really terrible. And this doesn't have lighting as well, so I will be looking at adding lighting to it. So I'm still of two minds with this set for myself. I think for the more serious modeler, certainly a modern, a contemporary modeler who wants to have a representative set of the contemporary trains, you kind of have to have this, to be honest. You mightn't run it very often because it might dirty your track, but you probably have to have it on your layout, and this is not a very expensive price to pay for it. It's very reasonable. So for the price of a DC only locomotive, you're getting a full 6-car train. So it is even, it is something to consider. So very glad I did a review of it. I think it's an interesting set. I think it's nicely presented. I think, as I say, the value point, it's hard to find fault with it. But for some people, some of those shortcomings may be just too much, and I can fully understand that, and they would disregard it as a result. So that's my review of the latest Eurostar from Hornby. It looks nice, it runs really fast, It has some issues, but it's not a bad representation of the Eurostar train. I would probably like something that had lighting and better quality running, etc. And I certainly would be prepared to pay more for it. But it is what it is, and I think at the price point it's hard to argue with it. Okay, thanks for watching today's review. Hopefully see you on the next one. And in the meantime, happy modelling.